Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian, and welcome back to another little audio thing on this otherwise used to be known as a gaming channel. Well, I say known. Anyway, I'm very thrilled about the reception that my last little vinyl video got, the one on Gary Numan. Didn't really anticipate such a warm and fuzzy response, so I thought I'd do a little follow-up, because there's one thing I missed out in that video, and that gives me a chance to talk about something related to the previous video, but also to show off a little thing that I just happen to have around the house that I find somewhat fascinating, and it's this little SoundMaster, which is a contradiction in terms, you might call it, because it does produce sound, but it is in no shape, way, or form a master at it. Let me see, the back of it. Yeah, the back of it says that it's a PL186, and while it looks very vintagey, it looks very sort of old style, very retro-ish, it is in fact not. This particular model was full of cat hair apparently, and was produced in 2015. So it's one of those retro style things that people buy because they want to appear fancy, and they want to have this little thing sitting around, and people go, ooh, is that an old-time radio thing? And you go, yeah, sure it is. In fact, it's not. I didn't know that when I picked it up. In my defense, my wife and I were at a thrift store, and we just saw this baby sitting around, and it was fairly cheap. I say we got away with it for maybe 100 or 200 Danish kroner, which is, yeah, it's on the screen now. I can't do currency conversions in my head, but I've looked it up online just a few seconds ago, and people are still selling this thing, and it goes for around 400 or 500 Danish kroner, which is, yeah. So that's kind of a bargain, I think, and reviews are kind of positive on it, which I find very suspicious. Most of the people who are reviewing it seem to be of the sort of, well, now I can get all my old vinyls out of the upstairs corner where I put them years and years ago, decades ago, in fact, millennia ago, and now I can finally play all my old records. And I would say playing your old records is exactly what you should do on this. You should not play any of the new shiny ones you bring home with all your favorite music on it, because it has, well, let's just, for demonstration purposes, say we want to measure the tracking force on it. Now this is an interesting little device. It's something that my dad gave me. It is, in fact, a device used for measuring tracking force. Tracking force being the weight that the stylus, I'm holding this the wrong way, like this, the weight that the stylus is pressing down onto the actual record. And it goes without saying, too much tracking force, very bad for the vinyl. That's like, you know, just carving up the grooves. So I tested this on my normal record player, and my normal record player is around 2 grams of tracking force, which is okay. It's in the upper range and such, but that's okay. Anything above 2.15 grams of tracking force is asking a bit for trouble. And you see some of those suitcase vinyl record players that, you know, all the hipsters are buying, they have like 10 grams of tracking force, sometimes more. And this little guy is no different. If I see the way this works, by the way, I should probably move the camera closer so you can see how this works. Okay, so the way this works is you put this thing down on the platter. As you can see, it's sort of tilting on one side, and the other side is touching the actual platter. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take the little pick-up-y thing here and put it down on the scale. Now, if I put it down on, let's say, the absolute maximum, it's going to tip over to the other side. Did you see that? See, the point of this thing is to get it to balance so that neither of the edges are touching the platter, and then you'll know the tracking force of it. However, this thing just flatlines every time you put it on, which means it has more than 2.5 grams of tracking force. So let's be fair, this thing is a piece of shit. And it's an expensive piece of shit, and it's the sort of piece of shit that people pick up and put on their shelf and go, ooh, isn't this a wonderful talking conversation piece of shit? It actually doesn't talk unless you put on a record that talks. Anyway, the point of me showing you this is because, and here comes the link with the previous video that I did, I do happen to have a bunch of 7-inch records, and some of those 7-inch records are back here. Oh dear, yes. We've got some jazz, we've got some Swedish pop music. Hi Dan. We've got some Ladytron, we've got some System of a Down. I don't know what the hell this is. And here we go, things are starting to kick up. We have got a Gary Numan single. And this is it's a single from the Jagged album. It's the In a Dark Place single, which is a picture disc. Here, let me get it out. Strictly limited edition of 1800. And it's a mostly black picture disc, which is, I dare say, is a bit weird to go all out with the picture disc format and then just have, you know, mostly a black picture on it. But anyway, there you go. And first of all, we've got his first #1 hit, Our Friends Electric, which is coincidentally the last one I picked up. I picked this up the first year I was at Adventure X. No, second actually. And it is the old style Beggars Banquet, which was his label. And it is the Two-Way Army release of Our Friends Electric. Thanks, Cat. And this thing has got, what the hell is this? I'm pulling off this weird little strand. Is this even visible? Anyway, so I'm reticent to put this on the vinyl carver up here, but let's do it anyway and see how it goes. It's a noisy fucker, innit? Now the sound you're hearing is coming out of the... Actually, I don't know if you are hearing the sound, but the sound is coming out of the speakers on the side. It doesn't play very loudly, and I'm just gonna... It's barely registering on the UV meter on my microphone here, so I don't even know if I want to keep this up. Anyway, it's playing. God, I can hear the distortion in the speakers. The needle is just pressing into the grooves. It's... Oh, this is terrible. And also the motor is really, really loud for some reason. I don't know, here. So anyway, that's Our Friends Electric, the first single to be #1 for Gary Numan and his band Two-Way Army. And the next haul of records is actually the result of one, shall I say, rather fortuitous eBay auction that I somehow won. It wasn't even that expensive, really. It was like, can't remember, it was like £10, maybe £20 or something, for a bunch of vinyl singles of Gary Numan, the first of which being the one everyone remembers and knows, which is the Cars single, backed with a song called Asylum that no one remembers. And this is, again, the official Beggars Banquet British release of it, not the American label. This is his British label, released in 1979.
Ooh, 1977.
Followed up by what he claims to be the first electronic ballad ever. I'm not entirely sure he's correct on that one, but anyway, it's complex with a very complex cover, almost kind of a spooky one, backed with the track that he, one of the tracks he used to get signed, actually, one of the punk tracks, Bombers. I guess it's a re-recording. I've never actually had a listen to it. It says live version on the label, so it is... I don't know if it's actually being played live. I highly doubt that this is a live recording. I didn't hear any audio noise at the start. And it's got some violin going. It's a lot slower than the version you might know from his punk days. Again, it sounds absolutely terrible on this vinyl player, so I'm not gonna subject my record to any more of that. Next we have a cover where Gary is looking for his car keys, or maybe his contact. It's I Die, You Die. He was very into the word die around this time. I'm not entirely sure. He even wrote a song called Every Day I Die, which is about jacking off. Seriously, look up the lyrics to Every Day I Die. It's very unmistakably a song about tugging the old bishop. Anyway, this song is, I'm pretty sure, not about that, although it could be he comes, you come, and then you both die. It's back with Down in the Park, the piano version, which is pretty similar to the regular version, except it's played on piano. And the next one is We Are Glass, which was owned by Lucy. I have no idea who Lucy is, but apparently she didn't want any of her Gary Numan singles anymore, and now they're mine. Thanks, Lucy. And it's backed by Trois Gymnopédias first movement, which apparently is a, what is his name? Paul Satie? Pear-shaped Satie something, sort of a classical composer-y kind of thing, and apparently he wanted to be all fancy, so he did a cover of a classical song. And both of those singles, incidentally, were from the Telecon record. However, none of those songs actually appear on the Telecon record. They were hit singles, and they, I think they went to #1, or at least very high in the British charts, but they didn't actually appear on the record itself, for reasons that not even Gary himself are entirely clear on. This song, however, did. It's the first track on Telecon, and it is a very slow, plodding, and very abrasive song that's basically about how Gary would like to very much tell everyone to fuck off. The chorus, in fact, is sung in Japanese, but it means,
"This wreckage I call me. Would like to meet you soon." Japanese phrase means goodbye forever.
And this was how he felt about his entire fame, and he went from a tiny little three-piece punk band to selling out Wembley Arena. Was it Wembley? Yeah, it was Wembley Arena, not Wembley Stadium, but still quite large. His farewell concerts were at Wembley Arena, and he did not deal with that very well at all. No siree. So all of Telecon is basically about him wanting to not be famous anymore, particularly this song. So he got what he wanted. He had his farewell gigs and said goodbye to the spotlight. He will claim that he just wanted to get out of touring and just get back into the studio and improve his songwriting. That resulted in this first single, White Boys and Heroes. His favorite word around this time was the word boys. It appears in pretty much every song that's on the record I Assassin, from which this was the first single. And he also started singing as if he were drunk, or just very much slurring his words, not even trying to hit notes, just just shut your mouth and this point of view. Yeah. Basically, that was a song from this album. You wouldn't know it. Not this song in particular, but close. He's so very dangerous, very gangster indeed, yes. Not sure he's entirely clear on what a gangster is, but at this point he gets his own label on the vinyl, yes. Oh, so fancy. And it's backed by a song called War Games, which sadly has nothing to do with the Matthew Broderick movie of 1982.
Shall we play a game?
Oh, it's far as I know anyway. And we move down the line into the 80s. Yes, now I said that his 80s period was really kind of awful, and it is. It was followed up by Hi, I'm Mel Gibson, would you like a baseball bat to the face period, also known as Warriors, and this is the title track from that album. It is pretty okay, but it's more white boy funk. Just to prove that he did not in fact give up touring after all, it has a bunch of tour dates on the back. He refers to this personally as the man who lost it all at Monte Carlo. And this is actually an album called The Fury. Now you can see the fury just coming off that face. And this was the Fury UK tour. Again, we're printing tour dates on the back of vinyl singles. I'm not entirely sure what the point of that is. And this song samples copiously from the movie Blade Runner. Which he was a very big fan, and of course you can plainly see the Blade Runner comparison here. I mean, of course he is supposed to be a replicant who got lost in a time machine and decided to wear a stupid dicky bow. And at the end of it, he just fucking gave up and put this out. I'm not even sure he is putting on an image at this point. I think he just dug out the old I Assassin, clothes and decided to take the shirt off and just recline and have a scotch. And this is a song called This Is Love. I'm not entirely sure he means that sincerely. However, you may have noticed at the top here, it says comes with a free interview flexi disc. Now, for those of you who don't know what a flexi disc, I was amazed incidentally that this thing actually still had the flexi disc in it. First of all, this is the actual single. It was released on his own label, Numan, not Numan, because that would make too much sense. But inside the thing is a little wobbly disc. And this is something you're supposed to put on top of an actual record, and there are these tiny little grooves, like little vinyl grooves on the one side of this thing. So when you put that on, you can hear an interview with him. What? How fast is this? We're just gonna put this on 45, and if it sounds weird and sort of high-pitched, we know we've done it wrong. Yeah, that's not right. Yeah, that's more like it.
I started to take these lectures, and at one point they give us this thing where you had to go home and write a piece of 4 parts. So I wrote this one, thought it sounded extremely nice, sent it back in, and they said, no, you can't have that. So I said, well, what's wrong with it? And they said, it sounds like me.
Anyway, it's just him talking, and it's apparently it is a free flexi disc, which is a sample of a series of albums to be released during 1986. Apparently there was an interview series going to come out with him, because I think he was still sort of deluding himself to have some semblance of relevance at the time, and he most certainly, and by his own admission these days, did not. He was in fact just clamoring to get any sort of chart success and failing miserably at it. Because the more you write with the intention of having chart success, the less you're going to get it. So it wasn't until he started just doing music for fun again. I think this must have been, I'm so good with guessing years, by the way, the dates and years, but I think it was around 1992, 1993, he made an album called Sacrifice, which was his first sort of, screw it, I'm just gonna make my own shit. and that actually took off, not in a big way, but he played all the instruments himself. He'd gotten into this bad rut of having a lot of guest musicians on his records and sort of burying himself in the mix because who wants to listen to me? Well, the people who are buying the records with your name on it, dickhead. He started playing all the instruments himself again, and he carried on doing that, and the music got darker and heavier and more interesting until we're at the point now where he is in fact a very, very lovely and recognized for his talent person again. Jesus, that was my Gary Numan 7-inch collection, which is kind of sort of a retrospective of what he was up to in the 80s, and I told you it wasn't very good. You are, however, free to go off and find out on your own. I'm missing some stuff. There's the worst album of all that he did, which, no, I think that was actually 1992 or 1991. He did an album called Machine and Soul, which he will attest is the worst thing ever put to vinyl, and sadly under his own name. So have a listen to that if you'd like to hear an album that the person who made it says sucks horribly. I'm glad to see, by the way, that some people actually went out and fell down the Gary Numan rabbit hole as a result of the previous video I did. And that's very rewarding. So hey, I'm very flattered, kind of, except I didn't really do anything other than talk about him, but really we should be thankful to Mr. Dickiebeau here. So that's it, and I do have a bunch of other stuff down here that might be of interest to talk about. Oh, we've still got this thing. Look at it. Look at it. Oh God, it's playing a banjo? I don't know. And the time that I printed up my own transparent 7-inch vinyl single and painted in the thing here and all that. All stuff that I would like to talk about at some point, but today is not that day anymore. Today is in fact the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and do whatever you kids do. Do leave me a comment. Let me know if you're still interested in this sort of thing. I do have other things to talk about than Gary Numan, and maybe even other things to talk about than just vinyl records, although I wanted to show off this little thing just because it's such a cool little interesting piece. At least it looked very cool in the thrift shop. Thrift stop. It's like a drive-through thrift store. It's a very hard word to say. And then I got it home and looked it up and realized it was just a cheap knockoff piece of shit from 2015. But anyway, it has an FM tuner. This is actually an aerial. So it picks up FM radio as well, in case anyone still listens to FM radio in their homes. I don't. Someone might. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream.